Nick, you had mentioned before the game you weren't sure how players would respond to being underdogs. And how do you think they responded, and how much was that used as motivation?
You guys gave us a lot of really positive rat poison. The rat poison that you usually give us is usually fatal, but the rat poison that you put out there this week was yummy.
Hello and welcome to TSG Radio, otherwise known as the Sports Generals Radio. Today we are coming at you talking about Monday night's national championship game between the champions of the college football world, the Georgia Bulldogs, and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Go away, Alabama! Go away, Alabama! Go away, Alabama. Forget the Crimson Tide. Nobody likes you. You're welcome, world. You're welcome.
That was special, Josh. That was really, really special.
I shed a tear.
Hey, you'll get a double dose of it because I'm going to do it tomorrow on the show. So,
I love
even
it.
Where was
even
this
though we're
rah-rah
not
when we did the show live? That's your confidence was gone initially, man. Where was this at?
Yeah, right.
What are you talking about?
Never mind.
When we made our picks.
Anyway, so moving on, because the show has already gone off the
The song was a very good way to start the show because the thought of "Go Away, Alabama," that's a good place for us to start. Why don't we talk about Georgia's victory and how we think it's going to affect Alabama or the shape of the SEC moving forward?
Yeah, that sounds like a good topic.
So, I guess my initial thought is I don't think Alabama's reign of terror over the SEC or even the college football landscape as a whole is even close to being over. Bryce Young is just won the Heisman, and he's going to be coming back next year. But here's my caveat with the national championship last night. And I know a lot of people who are Alabama fans are probably going to use this as an excuse. They're going to say, we were without John Mechie, arguably our best wide receiver. We lost Jamison Williams in that game, so we were limited on an offense. But guess what? Every team deals with injuries. Granted, these injuries were more significant than others. I get that. But still, every team deals with injuries or some type of adversity. So, I don't want to hear that this game was, what's the word I'm looking for?
Unfair or asterisk by it or anything like that.
Correct. That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you very much, Bryan.
You are very welcome.
Oh, I just realized we forgot to do introductions at the beginning of this. What the heck?
Y'all know who we are. I'm Bryan Fraley.
Jason Vaughn, and that song was more important than our intros.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I'm a bad host.
No, but Josh, you just said a couple things I really agree with. One, I don't think Alabama's reign of terror is over. Bryce Young is a young guy. He just won the Heisman. He's going to be good for a long time. Two, the injuries. Every team deals with injuries, especially in the past couple of years with the COVID-19 situation. That's just the reality of the game right now. So no, there are no excuses to be made on that front. And at the same time, though, some of those freshmen that came in on the biggest stage performed very well for Alabama. And they have a lot to be hopeful for after this game. I picked Bama. I thought Saban as an underdog, he always performs under those circumstances. And I think he was a bit limited and, the game plan had to change on the fly because one of those injuries happened during the game. But yeah, I think Georgia won that game fair and square. They were the better team this year.
And you know what? I just want to piggyback off that about the reign of terror. Alabama's reign of terror absolutely is not over. They, for crying out loud, had the top recruiting class again, I believe, or second. They are going to still be here for years to come. As long as Nick Saban's on the sideline, Alabama's going to always be in the discussions. Georgia, on the other hand, yes, this is pretty much their coming of age season. They did struggle in the SEC championship, but they were able to overcome that. And like I told you, gentlemen, in the live show we did last week, I just seen it. It just felt like Kirby Smart had an agenda of toppling Nick Saban for the first time, and he definitely was one of his first disciples to beat him. And Georgia's they got a good nucleus there, but Nick Young ain't going anywhere, and he just won Heisman. And for two, the SEC dominance, that's, it's luck. Yes, they won. I got to give them their credits when their credit is due. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's a Big Ten champion next year and going forward. But could tip my hat to Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs. Congratulations. You guys did pull it off and finally beat your mentor. So congratulations and kudos.
See, here's my one thing. I feel like everybody has somewhat forgotten about Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers. I mean, yeah, they had a down year this year, but I don't think they're going anywhere. Dabo has shown that he is a good coach. And sure, he had Trevor Lawrence and he had Deshaun Watson. I'll admit to that. Trevor Lawrence is a good quarterback. The Jaguars just flat out aren't a good team. And we know everything that's happening with Deshaun Watson, so I'm not going to get into that. But overall, I don't want to take anything away from Dabo Swinney. Just because you have a good quarterback doesn't automatically mean you're going to win a championship. You still have to have the right pieces around you. You still have to have a good head coach. And that's what Dabo is. So I don't think we should just say Clemson is done.
No, I agree with you about Clemson, Josh, but I think that in terms of the strength of the SEC, their brand right now is as strong as it's ever been. Everybody in the country and their brother didn't want to see a Bama and Georgia rematch. The College Football Playoff Committee even, tried to not let it happen by making sure they didn't match up in the first game. But at the end of the day, how did it play out? The two SEC teams ended up winning and meeting in the championship game, and they win another national title. The two best teams in the country are clearly Alabama and Georgia. So the playoff committee got it absolutely right this year. And it's going to look like this for a while. I think we're going to see more two SEC team playoffs, more of those in the future rather than less. I think Clemson is still an elite team. I think Ohio State is an elite team. I think Michigan is up and coming. But I still don't think in terms of the strength of their conference and the strength of their schedules that they are anywhere near at the competitive level of the SEC. The SEC is just loaded. It's a whole nother level. It's something we've never seen before in college football. We've never seen this type of dominance by one conference over the course of a decade.
You know what? What I would note or add to that is, yes, the SEC has displayed this physical dominance across the landscape, but when it comes to college kids, making sure that everything is in line, making sure that the staff is in line, everybody is buying into the program, recruiting is in line. That's where it comes coaching. And one can arguably say that the best coaching in the country is in the Big Ten. And if you want to take it a step further, that's why they went ahead and they locked down certain coaches for 10-year contracts, trying to keep them in place to make sure that they don't leave or float to the NFL. But they're trying to keep that portion in place because it's all about recruiting at the end of the day. And you can recruit, but it's like you recruit, well, in the SEC, recruit from the same pot. Also, Lincoln Riley is in Cali now. So the Pac-10 may be on the rise. We'll see. I doubt it, but it's the landscape is starting to change throughout the entire country. So I wouldn't go on to say SEC is going to be continuous dominance like it has been in the past. I think the league is starting to catch up to them. But as far as physical dominance, offensive line and defensive line play, yeah, that's going to be SEC all day right there.
Yeah, I get what you're saying about Lincoln Riley and maybe the Pac-12 being on the rise, but...
Yeah, Pac-12, my bad.
And, yeah. Don't worry about it.
Change
but
the names.
still, the Pac-12, aside from, like, Oregon having a good year occasionally, or, like, if Stanford can get their act together and put it together... You don't really have anyone in the Pac-12 unless Lincoln Riley can restore the glory of USC.
Utah.
I don't see anybody else from the Pac-12, and it's the same way with the ACC. Like, yeah, Wake Forest had a good, solid year this year. I'll give them that. And Pitt had a good.
Here's the thing you guys got to remember, too. The SEC is growing. They're adding Oklahoma and Texas. As much as I want to agree with you and say that like conferences like the Big Ten and the Pac-12 are catching up to the SEC, I mean, I really disagree. I think the gap is as big as it's ever been between the Big Ten and the SEC. I don't know. I just the number of 5-star and 4-star recruits that those teams have down there. At the end of the day, it's about the talent level on the field, especially during these COVID times when you're constantly plugging guys in from the second and third string. And the SEC has 4-star and 5-star talent on their benches, and Big Ten teams get 5-star players. But, I mean, they're in the starting lineup. They don't have 5-star guys on the bench.
Let's look at this angle.
We are not recruiting at the level of the SEC. Neither is the Pac-12.
I can appreciate that. Let's look at this, though, guys. And I know it seems like I may be a Big Ten apologist, and I'm not. All right. But let's look at this. The SEC is top-heavy. Okay? So, the SEC in general as a conference may show, or as a name for namesakes, it may flex its dominance, but at the end of the day, it's Georgia, Alabama, occasionally
LSU.
Texas A&M,
LSU,
and LSU. Right? That's it.
Florida.
They usually flame
The
out.
Big Ten is top heavy, bro. The Big Ten's top heavy. We have one elite team, and it's Ohio State, and that's it.
The Big Ten is extremely top heavy. I totally agree with you, Brian. It's Ohio State, and then it's everybody else. Like, you have your second tier teams in the Big Ten. That's where I would put Michigan, Penn State, and I'm not saying that because I'm a Penn State fan. I genuinely think they are a second tier team. I would put Michigan State in there. They usually are a very good team and are usually very competitive. I mean, we saw what happened.
What happens when one of those teams like Michigan State or Penn State has a good year, though? They end up going to the playoff and they get blown out by an SEC team. You know, it's happened to Notre Dame. It's happened to Ohio State. It happens all the time where one of these second tier teams gets hot and puts together a real good season, and everybody says, "Oh, look at the Big Ten. You know, it's getting better. It's getting better." And then when they send them down to the playoff and they get waxed. And then it's, oh, well, we don't have the talent they do. And at the end of the day, I don't know. It's just what it's coming down to in my eyes. I want to see things change because I love the Big Ten. I'm the biggest Big Ten fan there is. I always root Big Ten. I even root for Ohio State when they're not playing Michigan. I'm a real big Big Ten guy, but I just
That's
don't.
shocking to hear, actually.
That's deep.
I just don't see it, man. I don't see it from the Big Ten. I want to so bad. Like, this is as good of a year as Michigan's going to put together. And they just were not competitive with Georgia at the end of the day. They weren't. And yeah, it's scary when you think about how much better of a Michigan team can we possibly put out there, and they really weren't even close to being ready for competing with those SEC teams.
Let's look at this angle, guys. And I just want to paint a picture. You know, I love painting pictures, whether they're scribbled together or they're beautifully orchestrated. I like to paint.
So you like being an artiste.
Right. Here's my artistic skills. So let's hypothetically
artistic
say
skills. I like that.
Around, let's say, late October, early November, we do a SEC Big Ten challenge. and we actually
Now
have
you're
these teams come
talking,
up
Jason.
north.
Now you're talking.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love
So
it.
if these teams have to travel and come up north, are we still having this same discussion about how SEC is just so much superior than the Big Ten? Because it seems like SEC always got the dome games, or they got the nice weather, and it's a lot easier to play in those type of conditions. But come up north, come up to the big house, come up to the horseshoe.
But listen to what you're saying though.
Mm-hmm.
We need weather and elements and other extra. Like we need outside circumstances to even compete with these teams. We shouldn't need bad weather and grass to compete with the SEC, but we do.
But if you got pros that's going into the NFL, why would we hide that from them? That this is part of football.
But where's the playoff being played?
Yeah, it's always going to be in the good
conditions.
conditions.
There's no playoffs. It's always going to be in domes.
Yeah, but the Super Bowl is too. But you got to earn your way to get to the Super Bowl, right? Playing in the tough conditions.
Bryan, that's not true. That is not true. They did when Clemson and Alabama played in the 2018 national championship.
But warm weather though. It's in the South. It's a warm weather game.
It was in San Francisco.
Yeah, in San Francisco, California. Like, it wasn't cold weather game. It's not 30 degrees and snowing like we're talking about. When you were talking about the Big Ten in December is different than San Francisco in January.
But
I'll give that one to you. But still,
if they're pros, which they are, but just from the eye test alone, instead of hiding these kids from how it's going to be in the real world, which is going to be sleet, snow, frigid conditions, raining conditions a lot of the time. Stop hiding these kids and let them come up north, let them play, and let them get their feet wet or frozen, for that matter, because they're hiding them, and it's not good to say that it's going to be perfect conditions all the time. That's irresponsible, and that's not being real to the kids.
Jason, you heard how excited I got when you brought up the idea of doing the SEC Big Ten Challenge, and I think my excitement there is validated. Like, go back and watch the game this season between Auburn and Penn State. Sure, they're not the level of like a Georgia or an Alabama or an Ohio State necessarily, but you have to admit, that was an exciting game to watch. And, of course, the Penn State whiteout added to that. That's like one of the items at the very top of my bucket list is to attend a Penn State whiteout game.
We don't never do good in the whiteouts.
It is. Ohio State Ohio State has won in the whiteout the past couple times you've been there, but we don't make it easy on you. I shouldn't say we, because my dad always gets upset about that, so I should say they don't make it easy on you. There you go. You're welcome, Dad. But anyway, like, my overall point, though, is, like, Auburn, Penn State, that was an exciting game. It wasn't just, Auburn, the big bad SEC went to Big Ten country, and yeah, but overall my point is the big bad SEC didn't just steamroll the Big Ten even though they were in Big Ten country. Like, would LSU have done that to, I don't know, Michigan if the game was played in Ann Arbor?
Definitely not. Not this year either.
Would Texas A&M do that to, say,
would.
Michigan State?
Mm-hmm. Hell, who's to say if Georgia came up north? Who's to say if Georgia would have came up north around this time and unfortunately played the guys up north? I definitely know it wouldn't have been this type of outcome.
You're crazy, and I'm the biggest Michigan homer there is. They would have beat our ass on any field anywhere in the world.
It's just that weather, man. That's a whole different.
100% dominant.
That's something else you're playing against, man. And I played ball before. And I'm telling you, man, trying to tackle somebody in cold weather, and
I play
That is
varsity
a
football
tall
too,
task.
so trust me, I play varsity football. I play both ways. I've played football, but I'm just saying what I see the eye test. If you watch that game, Georgia versus Michigan, it wouldn't have mattered where they played. They dominated up front. Absolutely
That was a
dominated.
bad comparison.
And to think that if it was cold and snowy that would have somehow changed it, I think it would have favored Georgia even more, because then it's even more smash mouth style football. It's more running game, and they're going to stack the box, and we can't throw it over top of them.
You know what I think about?
They would have ran through us in Ann Arbor.
There's a special team that probably is built for Georgia. And just hear me out before I get cut off, because I already know I'm going to get cut off for this. But it's a team that handles all of the top heavyweights in our division. And I know they're no exception when it comes to Georgia. I think they go to Purdue. I think Purdue, for some weird reason, they may handle Georgia. And I just don't know what it is about going there. I don't know, but it's just a weird environment, man. But Purdue usually beats the big heavyweight teams.
That's true. But, Bryan, not that this would change anything, because in this case, I think you're right, Georgia would win. But a non-conference game like that would be early in the season, not late in the season. But still, I get your overall point. But let's say this type of thing does happen where they do like some sort of SEC Big Ten challenge in college football, which I personally would be a huge fan of, because I think the SEC and Big Ten are the two premier conferences in college football. I don't want to... What's never going to happen?
It's too much of a risk. Why would Ohio State take a risk and schedule an SEC team early in the year? Like, why? What do they have to gain from that? They have nothing to gain from that.
That's actually already been done. Ohio State has agreed to a home-and-home series in like 2030, if I remember correctly, with Alabama, and they're doing a home-and-home series with Georgia at some point in the future.
Oh, man. I don't know how that's going to go. If they play them later in the season,
I have to look up the exact details.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it's a bad idea, and nobody's doing it within the next decade. That's in the 2030s, you know? I just don't. I don't see any Big Ten team voluntarily scheduling an SEC team early in the year. It's hard enough to get through the season with less than 2 losses. And if you have 2 losses, you ain't making the playoffs.
I'll play Ole Miss. Get that out the way of Kentucky. Get an early game in. As just for naming rights.
I mean, I'll play Vanderbilt. Or Kentucky early on. Yeah, but man, I don't want to play Bama or Georgia in week 2, week 3.
Absolutely not. No.
I don't see it happening. I like the thought of it. I get where you guys are coming from, but from a competitive standpoint, I think that there's the universities stand nothing to gain from taking that kind of risk early in the year.
I'm reading it right here. Ohio State and Georgia agree to home-and-home series. Power 5 contenders will meet in 2030 in Athens and 2031 in Columbus.
Right, 10 years from now. So anybody in the next 10 years, has anyone within the next 10 years scheduled any SEC opponent in the first 3 weeks of the season?
Yeah.
It ain't going to happen.
It's like they're trying to slow walk the inevitable.
Yeah, they're trying to. Yeah, they're putting that off and putting it off as far as they can.
Oh, according to ESPN.com, Ohio State and Alabama are going to play a home-and-home football series in 2027 and 2028.
That's closer,
right?
Buckeyes will host the first game in Columbus on September 18th, 2027. Before traveling to Tuscaloosa the following season on September 9th, 2028.
See, so, if it ain't in October, it's beneficial.
There you go, gentlemen.
I don't know.
And I like that. I love that these Power 5 teams are agreeing to a home-and-home series rather than a neutral site game. I mean, I get why, like,
100%.
I understand why, like, bowl games and the national championship are not at, like, you know, the higher seeded team's field. You want to keep that neutral site. I get that. That's fine. But during the regular season, I don't want to see a neutral site game. If you're going to do, like, Notre Dame, Wisconsin, for example, Do it at Camp Randall Stadium. Do it at Notre Dame Stadium. I want to see how does Notre Dame handle when the Wisconsin Badger fans start doing jump around. I want to see how, let's say LSU were to play Penn State in the whiteout. How does LSU handle that? I could give you various other things. I just feel like neutral site games don't quite give you the full college football experience, if you will.
Yeah, I agree with you. To me, the best part about college football is it's the atmosphere. It's the pageantry of it. And when you put something at a neutral site, you're taking it off campus. You lose all that. You
lose the home field advantage.
That as well. Yeah, absolutely. So from a competitive standpoint, neutral site makes sense. But from a product standpoint, no, I'm with you, Josh. I want to see those games played. I want to see how Penn State does down in Auburn, and I want to see how Auburn does at the whiteout. Like you said, if those matchups are going to happen, do home and homes, because that makes it most fair for everybody.
Right. I agree. It makes it way more exciting. It's is the away team, let's say Oregon, going to be able to handle the pressure of playing in Columbus, which clearly they did this year. But still, when that game was scheduled, I'm sure that was a question that everybody was asking. Can Oregon, a West Coast team, yeah, they are a West Coast team, can they travel east and play in Columbus? Or,
there's a lot of respect
various
that
other
goes
things.
To that. A lot of respect.
So, I decided to look at Georgia's schedule next year just for fun, just to see who they were playing. And they start their season against Oregon in a neutral site game. Why?
There's a Georgia Bulldog fan.
Sorry about that, guys. Unfortunately, I can't mute my dog.
Hey, the dog's passionate about the Bulldogs.
He really is. He's a big Bulldogs fan. Well, we're at about a half hour. Anyway. If you guys want to wrap up, just kind of give some last thoughts. I wish I was more hopeful for the Big Ten, but I'm not. So I'd love to hear you guys give me one more reason to put my faith in the Big Ten for next season.
Hey, you pretty much nailed them all, man. I tried to come to this fight with a knife, and you just slaughtered me. So,
no, and that wasn't my intention. My intention wasn't to shoot down anybody's argument.
You're right.
It was just I'm still fresh off of that Georgia loss. You got to understand that too. We just got our butts whipped by them, so it's still raw. Yeah. So I'm man, there's no hope. There's no hope. So yeah, no, I think you guys made some really, really good points though. It's a whole different football game when you make those boys come up and play in Ann Arbor and in Columbus. Do I think it would have made a difference in the outcome? No, but you're right. It would have been more interesting. It would have been more fun, and it definitely would have made it more difficult for them. And at the end of the day, I want to see better competition. So that was a really good point, Jason.
Yeah. Hopefully they'll take this feedback.
It is I'm also fresh off Penn State losing against Arkansas, or as I can call them, Arkansas.
So you get it. You get the SEC pain.
Yeah.
Kansas.
I will say this. We laugh about how bad Vanderbilt is in the SEC, and that's not to make fun of Vanderbilt. Well, I guess it is a little bit, but at the same time, that's how top-heavy the SEC is. But I think Oklahoma isn't going to be, a pushover in the SEC. I think they're actually going to be somewhat of a factor.
I think Oklahoma will be like a Texas A&M. I could see that. Texas, no. I think Texas will be more of a Tennessee. A has-been program that still has some it still has some shine historically, but that's about it, you know.
Yeah. I mean, Texas lost to freaking Kansas, for crying out loud. What's going to happen when they play against Alabama every year or Georgia? They're going to get slaughtered.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting. I got to say, though, it was very brave of those two teams to do, you know. I mean, hats off to them for saying that they're willing to take the risk of competing at a higher level.
Honestly, I feel like the Big 12 won, though, because, yeah, they lost Texas and Oklahoma, their two top premier programs. I get that, but they added Cincinnati, who made it to the playoff this year. Granted, they got destroyed by Alabama, but still. They had UCF, who has been a decent football team the past couple years.
And speaking of
and
destroyed,
they had BYU.
Speaking of destroyed,
and BYU has.
We're gonna get destroyed by the producers,
usually
guys.
A competitive team.
Yeah, we gotta wrap this show up. Because the producers are going to
destroyed by the producers. No, but it's been fun. It's been fun as always doing this with y'all. So make sure you tune in on Wednesday. We'll be back with the Sports Generals. We'll have video for you then.
Absolutely.
But we hope you enjoyed this radio version of the show.
Absolutely, y'all. Good show, guys.
All right, bye, guys.
Yo.